Hi, my name is Ella Ryerson, and my research centers around parental perceptions of preschool pathways, specifically the comparison of guardian expectations and curriculum. Before I started my research, I was unaware that kindergarten readiness does not have one set definition. However, this is due to multiple factors, some of which are that there are multiple domains of development. Progression is not always linear across these domains. There is little to no agreement of what is entailed in kindergarten readiness. There is high variability in the normal range of readiness, and readiness is affected by previous experiences. As this quote from the United States Department of Education shows, as the interest in kindergarten readiness continues to rise, so will the debate regarding what is important and should be included when determining kindergarten readiness. This difficulty and complexity to define is significant because it ultimately leads to misunderstandings between teachers and guardians regarding kindergarten readiness. Amplifying these misconceptions, currently less than 1/2 of children enter into preschool with prior learning experiences. It is important to close this gap for two overarching reasons. The first being that parental support is one of the most important factors when determining a child's educational success, therefore demonstrating the need for teacher and guardian agreement. Additionally, a significant percentage of the achievement gap begins pre-kindergarten entry. Therefore, we need to close this gap in order to make sure that children are able to reach their highest potential. Moving into a study that examines the differing viewpoint of teachers and guardians, in this study, guardians believe that literacy and communication skills were the most important for their child to learn in regards to kindergarten readiness. However, in contrast, teachers believed that social and behavioral development skills were most important for a child to learn. Additionally, in a research study that was produced by researchers Welch and White, the researchers identified that guardians prioritize academic preparation at the start of school by wanting their child to know the alphabet before even entering into kindergarten. However, these two sources are limited as they fail to examine the underlying reasons behind these disagreements between these two groups. The broad understanding of kindergarten readiness ultimately leads to guardians obtaining falsified beliefs about their own child's abilities. In this study, guardians overestimated how a child would perform in both the cognitive and language domains, therefore demonstrating that guardians have an overconfidence in their own child's abilities. Additionally, a research question asked, on a Likert scale of 1 to 5, if a child appears unready for kindergarten, I would suggest he or she wait a year or two before enrolling. The mean response was a 2.87, therefore demonstrating that guardians do not feel the need to hold their child back from entering into kindergarten. Falsified beliefs play into this as that guardians often believe that their child is more ready in reality, guardians often believe that their child is more ready than in reality. Although there has been a significant focus of the disagreements between guardians and teachers, there has been little to no examination of curriculum being a probable contributor to this misunderstanding. It has been identified that the largest way that guardians have a say for curriculum development is through participating in school board meetings. Researcher Marsh identified that those who are below socioeconomic status or an ethnic minority are less likely to participate in these school board meetings. Researcher Wood identified the reasoning behind this is that these guardians often feel uncertain or unknowledgeable in relation to their child's education. Therefore, without the input from these underrepresented groups, schools are unable to fulfill both teacher and guardian expectations, and therefore lose the ability to increase parental involvement. This brings me to my research question to close the gap between guardians and teachers regarding kindergarten readiness as potentially identifying curriculum as a probable contributor to this misunderstanding. My research question asks, how does the Fireflies 3 and 4-year-old curriculum utilized in teaching as a profession associated child care centers compare to the kindergarten readiness expectations of guardians? In alignment with the disagreement in the field, I hypothesize that there will be a disconnect between the guardians' expectations and the Fireflies curriculum. In order to test this hypothesis, I employed a mixed method, including multiple content analyses and a guardian-style survey. A mixed method allows me to collect both qualitative and quantitative data, which is essential in my research as I need to compare the kindergarten readiness expectations of guardians to the Fireflies curriculum. Moving into the first step of my procedure, the Kindergarten Entry Inventory, or the KEI content analysis. The KEI is a guide created by the Tennessee Department of Education in order to assess the readiness of an individual child. This guide acted as my definition of kindergarten readiness for this study due to its formally discussed complexity and difficulty to define. In order to conduct my content analysis, I used a 3-step process that was introduced to me by researcher Tamal Yilar. Yilar used this in a study to conduct a content analysis to determine the curriculum that was being taught in social studies textbooks in Turkey. With this method, I was able to identify the KEI learning domains, the KEI measures, and the KEI's definitions for each measure. Once this was completed, I was then able to create a Guardian survey based on these findings. I employed a Likert-style survey, which was introduced to me by researchers Welch and White. Researchers Welch and White used a Likert-style survey to obtain the average Guardian responses in relation to certain average Guardian and teacher responses in relation to certain kindergarten readiness standards. This in turn allows me to identify the average Guardian responses in relation to the KEI measures. I then moved into the Fireflies curriculum content analysis, once again using the code, category, and theme trio. This trio allowed me to identify the Fireflies learning domains, the Fireflies indicators, and the definitions for each Fireflies indicator. After this, I was then able to compare the KEI to the Fireflies curriculum by identifying the focus verb of each KEI measure. This then allowed me to identify if the verb of the KEI was present in the Fireflies curriculum. Moving into my KEI content analysis results, there were 5 overarching themes: approaches to learning self-regulation, social and personal competency, physical development, cognition including math and sciences, and language literacy development. However, before further examination, there are 3 levels of questions that need to be examined in relation to my data. The first being, are the KEI themes present in the Fireflies curriculum? In order for this to hold true, each KEI measure had to have at least 1 Fireflies indicator assigned. The second question, do the overall KEI domain percentages align with the importance order Guardians held in regards to these KEI domains? So if Guardians believe that social and personal competency was the most important domain for their child to learn, it should have the highest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. And lastly, for each theme, do the highest and lowest mean Guardian responses align with the Fireflies percentage of focus for each measure? So for each theme, the KEI measure with the highest average Guardian response should have the highest percentage of focus for that theme. And the KEI measure with the lowest average Guardian response should have the lowest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. It is important to note that for the question, are the KEI themes present in the Fireflies curriculum? This does hold true, as each KEI measure had at least 1 Fireflies indicator assigned. Therefore, this is not a point of disagreement between the Guardians' expectations and the Fireflies curriculum. Moving into the importance order that Guardians created, for the survey question, which domain of kindergarten readiness do you believe is most important for your child to learn while enrolled in this child care center? Guardians believed that social and personal competency was the most important for their child to learn, followed by language literacy development and self-regulation. It's important to consider that not a single Guardian believed cognition, including math and sciences, or physical development was the most important for their child to learn. However, since cognition, including math and sciences, did have a lower overall average belief for the entire theme than in comparison to physical development, cognition, including math and sciences, did take the role of having the least importance held by the Guardians, and physical development took the second to last. However, when you look at the Fireflies curriculum percentage of focus, you can see that this does not align with Guardians' expectations. The Fireflies curriculum percentage of focus from largest to smallest is as follows: language literacy development, approaches to learning self-regulation, cognition including math and sciences, social and personal competency, and physical development. Therefore, for the question, do the KEI domain percentages align with the importance parents held regarding the KEI domains? This does not hold true. Therefore, this is a point of disagreement between the Fireflies curriculum and the Guardians' expectations. For each individual theme, starting with language literacy development, LLD 10 had the highest average Guardian belief, but it actually had the lowest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. LLD 3 had the lowest average Guardian belief, but it actually had the highest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. For approaches to learning self-regulation, Alt-Reg 4 had the highest average Guardian belief, but it actually had the lowest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. And Alt-Reg 1 had the lowest average Guardian belief, but it actually had the highest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. This aligns with the last theme, as the importance order is switched in the Fireflies curriculum. For cognition, including math and sciences, M1 had the highest guardian belief, but actually had the second highest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. And M4 had the lowest average guardian belief, but it actually had the highest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. For social and personal competency, SPC4 had the highest average guardian belief, but it actually had the third highest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. And SPC5 had the lowest average guardian belief, but actually had the highest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. For the last theme, physical development, PD1 had the highest average guardian belief, however, it actually had the second highest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. And PD4 had the lowest average guardian belief, but it actually had the highest percentage of focus in the Fireflies curriculum. Therefore, for question 3, do the highest and lowest mean guardian responses align with the Fireflies percentage of focus for each measure? This does not hold true. Therefore, this is a point of disagreement between the Fireflies curriculum and the Guardian's expectations. There are some limitations to consider before moving into my conclusion. The first being that I did use a voluntary response sampling technique for my Guardian survey, which tends to overstate those who have strong beliefs and undersample those who have weaker beliefs. Therefore, this could potentially alter the average Guardian response that I received. Additionally, I did take a sample of the Fireflies curriculum, so this does leave room to potentially alter the Fireflies indicator percentages. However, in order to combat this, I took a sample of the first, middle, and last books of each semester in order to obtain a holistic sample. With these limitations in mind, I can now conclude that the Fireflies curriculum does not align with the readiness expectations of Guardians beyond the surface level. There are 3 underlying contributors to this: the overall applicability of the KEI focus verb for each measure, the amount of Fireflies indicators assigned to each KEI measure, and the learning domain that the Fireflies indicators assigned were from. In the future, it is important to examine the relationship between Guardians, teachers, and curriculum, specifically in regards to the question if teachers obtain their readiness expectations from the curriculum that they teach. Through further research, if it is concluded that teachers obtain their kindergarten readiness expectations from the curriculum that they teach, then it can be concluded that curriculum is a contributor to the misunderstanding between Guardians and teachers. Additionally, it is important to examine ways to get those who are of a low socioeconomic status or an ethnic minority to be more involved in school board meetings. This will not only allow for schools and curriculum developers to obtain an accurate representation of Guardians' belief, but it will also allow for parental support, which is so crucial to a child's education. Thank you.
How did your review of the methods used by scholars in the field inform your selection of a research method that is aligned with your research question?
I would say the top 2 important decisions that I made in regards to my method was employing the code, category, and theme trio to do my content analysis on the curriculum and the KEI, and also including a Likert scale of the Guardians. So with the code, category, and theme trio, as I mentioned, this was a 3-step process that allowed me to identify the levels in each of these documents. It allowed for easier analysis because I could easily see what was assigned to each level. And then on my Likert style survey, I originally did not choose to employ a Likert style survey. I was just going to use a yes or no response. But however, for further analysis, it was necessary that I did find the average belief of the Guardians. So the research by Welch and White allowed me to do this by using a Likert style survey.
Second question. What are the real world implications or consequences related to your findings?
Well, the real world implications really show the need of Guardians really understanding what their children are learning, and there needs to be an agreement between teachers and Guardians of what their children are actually learning, because it allows for increased parental support, which increases a child's educational ability. So it's just really important that teachers and Guardians are on the same page in order to fully allow these children to reach their highest potential.
What was the most important research skill you developed as a result of this process, and how might you apply it to your future endeavors?
I would say that the most important research skill that I learned was how to find credible sources, and this was brought to me by using databases like JSTOR or EBSCO, and this allowed me to identify if what I was learning is actually accurate. And additionally, I can apply this to future endeavors, as I will just be able to tell what is accurate, whether or not it's in research or just in everyday life, and I can be confident in the information that I'm receiving.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, the floor is open for general questions, and remember, these are not scores, so not for the score. General questions.
Well, I just want to say this was so beautifully done.
Thank you.
I think you nailed it when you talked about, as a society, the way that we define kindergarten readiness is really varied, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
A question that I have is, how widely used is the Fireflies curriculum? Are there a lot of
I actually don't know the answer to that, but the Fireflies curriculum is actually a set that can just be purchased. So it's just able to be like purchased by if you want it or not. So if child cares want to implement it, they can.
A follow-up question with that, and I don't know if this is one that you know or not. I know that because we had talked previously about this, that Fireflies is used in the Wilco program. Is that because you mentioned school board meetings and like involvement, is that dictated by the school board? Do you know?
I do not know.
Yeah. Do you know? I'm going to piggyback another
That's a
one.
Miss Perkerson
Do you know?
question.
Okay, so we'll just have to do that together and decide. Yeah, I love it. And do you know if there is, are child care centers, are they required to have a certain curriculum that they follow, or do you know that?
I did not come to any research that stated that, but that doesn't mean that that's not true. So I'm not sure.
Because there is such a discrepancy, some
Yeah.
people might be like, we just
I
let
would
it play.
I would imagine since it's like hard to define, you can't
Yeah.
say like
Yeah.
we're not at that point yet.
Well, I think even within those KEI or KEI factors, there would still be varying viewpoints.
Yeah.
What is social emotional readiness? What does that look like?
Yeah.
So
For sure.
Really interesting. It's completely opposite. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, so I'm just excited about when you write our next curriculum, pre-K and early childhood, but seriously, if you were to do that, or if you became a pre-K or early childhood teacher, how would you feel taking all that you've learned through this? Could you create, because of course, as we know, for good teachers, we have a curriculum, but we also have to do everything else that's part of it. Can't just follow just that, we bring everything else into it. So how would you make sure that you are getting those other parents involved in getting those, underrepresented families involved to create a curriculum that would be better?
That's a good question.
Whatever you think.
Well, since I'm in the teaching as a profession class, Ms. Perkerson has obviously done a good job of like showing us like the different standards and like what each standards means and like how to implement them. But I'm not exactly sure how you would get those of a low socioeconomic status or an ethnic minority. I don't know if increased like parent-teacher conferences would allow them to feel more comfortable. That could just be one option there. Or just like making it more accessible to where maybe you don't exactly have to be at the school board meeting, to where you could like send out like a survey or like something like that, if that means so.